It was our 23rd anniversary, and there I was, standing in the mirror, adjusting the dress I'd chosen for the evening. It was supposed to be a celebration, a testament to the decades of love, challenges, and shared life with my high school sweetheart. To us, I whispered to my reflection, trying to muster more enthusiasm than I felt. Our marriage, from the outside, looked like a beautifully bound book of love stories, the kind that makes you believe in forever. Yet, as I glanced at the silver streaks in my hair, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was missing, a gap that had been widening silently over the years. The night of our high school reunion was unexpectedly pivotal. Seeing him, an old flame, was like stumbling upon a book you forgot you loved. The conversation was easy, too easy, and it reignited feelings I thought were ashes. He had this way of looking at me, seeing the person I used to be, the person I sometimes missed being. It was intoxicating, a whisper of the past that promised excitement in the monotony of my present. The affair began not long after, a series of secret meetings cloaked in lies I told myself were harmless. Each stolen moment with him was a patch on the quilt of my existence, bright and thrilling against the beige backdrop of my life. It's just a fling, I convinced myself, ignoring the voice inside that knew better. But you can't dance in the shadows without casting a silhouette. My husband, always intuitive, sensed the shift before he had evidence. Small changes in my demeanor, my sudden protectiveness over my phone. "Is everything okay?" he'd ask, his eyes searching mine for the truth I wasn't ready to give. The day he found those texts, the world as we knew it shattered. I came home to find him, phone in hand, a storm of betrayal and hurt brewing in his eyes. "How could you?" Wasn't just a question, it was a bullet, and it hit its mark. The confrontation that followed was a hurricane, leaving our marriage a debris-strewn landscape. We tried to rebuild in the aftermath, agreeing to counseling sessions that felt like band-aids on bullet wounds. Talks, tears, and promises wove a fragile peace between us. And when I discovered I was pregnant, it felt like a sign, a chance to start anew. The birth of our third child was a balm, a joy that momentarily bridged the chasm between us. Yet, standing here, ready to celebrate another year of marriage, I couldn't help but feel the weight of my choices. The affair, though ended, left invisible scars, reminders of the price of seeking fulfillment outside the tapestry we'd woven together. To us, I repeated, this time to my husband as he entered the room, his smile still capable of dulling the sharp edges of my regrets. As we stepped out into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were actors in a play, performing roles perfected over years of routine. The laughter, the conversation, it all felt scripted, a veneer over the cracks that had begun to show. Yet, there was love, undeniable and deep, a foundation I had shaken but not destroyed. Tonight, I decided, would be for us, a celebration of survival, of the resilience of a love that had weathered storms but still stood, flawed but firm. There I was, tracing the cold, vacant side of the bed next to me, a side that had once been his. It's funny, isn't it? How you can share your life with someone for over 2 decades, only to end up as strangers. This isn't what I signed up for, I murmured into the darkness, a confession to the shadows that had become my only confidants in the silent hours of the night. Years had passed since my first misstep, years filled with silent dinners, forced smiles, and a loneliness that clung to me like a second skin. I found myself once again seeking solace outside the confines of my marriage, drawn to the intoxicating illusion of being understood, of being seen. It was as if I was trying to piece myself back together with stolen moments and whispered promises from another man who wasn't my husband. Another betrayal, and I'm gone. His words echoed in my mind, a stark ultimatum from the man who had once vowed to stand by me through better or worse. Yet, there I was, blatantly ignoring the gravity of his warning, diving headfirst into an affair that promised the kind of happiness I hadn't felt in years. In my heart, a dangerous justification took root. Didn't I deserve to be happy? Didn't I deserve to feel alive again? The discovery was brutal and swift. There were no forgotten messages this time, no overlooked details. He knew, and the confrontation that followed was a tempest, a cataclysmic clash of heartache, betrayal, and shattered promises. "How could you do this to us again?" he demanded, his voice a mixture of disbelief and rage. The air between us was charged with the kind of despair that only comes from loving someone enough to be destroyed by their actions. The divorce papers arrived not long after, a tangible symbol of our fractured fairy tale. Signing them felt like signing away a part of my soul, a concession that our story was over, that the life we had built together was nothing more than a house of cards, precariously built on a foundation of broken vows. The day he moved out was a blur, a series of moments strung together by the overwhelming reality of our ending. I watched as he packed his life into boxes, each item a chapter of our shared history being closed. The finality of his departure left me reeling, a profound emptiness that echoed through the empty halls of what used to be our home. And then, as if the universe hadn't finished mocking the ruins of my life, news of his new love reached me. Within months, he had found someone else, a woman he met online, someone who had quickly become his new beginning. I heard they moved in together, her children filling the spaces our family once occupied in his life. The knowledge was a knife, each detail a twist that carved out what little was left of my heart. Sitting alone in the home we once shared, surrounded by the remnants of our life together, I couldn't help but wonder how we got here. How did two people who promised forever find themselves so irrevocably lost? The weight of my choices, of my betrayals, bore down on me, a relentless reminder of the cost of seeking happiness in the arms of others. I was left to navigate the wreckage of my decisions, a ship without a compass, adrift in a sea of regret and what-ifs. As the dust settled on the ruins of my marriage, I found myself grappling with a cocktail of emotions, but regret was the most bitter of them all. It clung to me, a constant reminder of the chaos I had orchestrated with my own hands. The quiet of the house echoed with the absence of my husband, and in those moments of solitude, the weight of my decisions pressed down on me with unforgiving gravity. Financial struggles soon became my daily reality. Balancing the household expenses and the needs of our children on a single income felt like trying to stem a tide with a teacup. Each bill, each unexpected expense, was a wave crashing over my already unsteady boat. I missed the financial security that our combined incomes once offered, but more than that, I missed having someone to share the burden with. The legal battles over custody and financial support turned what was once a partnership into a war zone. Every meeting with lawyers, every court appearance, was a battle in a war one never wanted to fight. It doesn't have to be this way, I pleaded during one of our mediated sessions, hoping for a truce, if not reconciliation. In a moment of desperation, I reached out to him, hoping that maybe, beneath the layers of hurt and betrayal, we could find a way to coexist for the sake of our children. Can we not try again? For them? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper during one of our brief, tense phone calls. His rejection was as cold as it was final. There's nothing left to salvage, he said, the finality in his voice a clear indication that he had moved on, emotionally and physically, now living with someone he had met online, someone who wasn't burdened with the mistakes I had made. It was then that a mysterious character emerged, a figure from the shadows of my husband's past. There's something you should know, they said, their voice low, hinting at secrets untold. Intrigued and desperate, I listened as they wove tales of my husband's new partner, revealing a darkness that lay beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect relationship. Armed with this knowledge, I found myself at a crossroads. The information held the power to shatter my husband's newfound happiness, to bring him back to the chaos he had escaped. But at what cost? Is winning him back this way worth it? I pondered, the moral dilemma gnawing at me. Yet, as I mulled over my options, a part of me couldn't help but wonder if this was the leverage I needed, not just to win him back, but to regain some semblance of control over the spiraling narrative of my life. The temptation to use this dark secret to my advantage was a siren call, one that promised a way out of my loneliness and despair, even if it meant venturing further into the murky waters of moral ambiguity. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. In the dim glow of my laptop, a plan began to take shape, fueled by the revelation of my husband's partner's dark secret. It was a scheme born of desperation in the raw edges of a heart too long acquainted with betrayal. If I can't have him back, at least I can shatter this facade of happiness they've built, I muttered to myself, the bitterness in my voice a stark contrast to the quiet of the night. The execution of my plan was meticulous, a series of anonymous tips and carefully planted evidence designed to sow seeds of doubt and discord. Watching from the sidelines, I waited for the inevitable fallout, a storm I had conjured with whispers and shadows. But the universe, it seems, has a cruel sense of irony. The turmoil I unleashed did not spare me in its wake. My actions, far from hurting just my husband and his new love, spiraled out of control, affecting innocent bystanders and, most painfully, our children. The backlash was swift and severe, a tidal wave that dragged me under with its force. The finalization of our divorce came amidst this chaos, a legal document that felt more like a verdict on my failures than the end of a marriage. The settlement left me grappling with financial insecurity, a stark reminder of the cost of my vendetta. "This is not how it was supposed to happen," I whispered to the empty room, the papers in my hand a tangible sign of my dwindling options. The custody battle that followed was a nightmare. My husband, armed with evidence of my machinations, sought full custody of our children. Each court appearance was a battle, my every mistake laid bare for judgment. "She's unstable," he argued, his words finding too much truth in the eyes of the court. As my world crumbled, so too did the network of support I once took for granted. Friends, family, those I had counted on, distanced themselves, unwilling or unable to stand by me amidst the wreckage of my own making. The isolation was suffocating, a prison built from my own actions. Driven by a mix of guilt, regret, and an unyielding desire to reclaim some fragment of the life I had destroyed, I made a series of decisions that only served to deepen my fall. Each attempt to rectify my situation seemed to lead me further away from redemption, a descent into desperation that knew no bounds. In those dark moments, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had led me here, a path marked by betrayal, revenge, and the irrevocable consequences of my actions. The realization that I had become the architect of my own despair was a bitter pill to swallow, a truth that offered no comfort in the silence of my solitude. The day my world imploded wasn't marked by thunderstorms or ominous music. It was just another sunlit morning, deceptively ordinary, until my private misdeeds became the day's hottest gossip. Whispers turned into shouts, and soon, my name was synonymous with betrayal in our small community. Friends I'd laughed with for years now crossed the street to avoid me, and the few who didn't, looked at me with a mix of pity and disdain. The isolation was suffocating, a relentless reminder of the consequences of my actions. Driven by a mix of desperation and delusion, I convinced myself that there was still a chance to turn things around, to plead my case directly to the one person whose opinion mattered most. My heart pounded as I stood at his doorstep, rehearsing the apology I'd composed, a mix of excuses and pleas for understanding. The door swung open, and there he stood, the man I had shared more than 2 decades of my life with, now a stranger gazing back at me with an unreadable expression. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice devoid of warmth. I just wanted to talk. To explain, I stammered, stepping forward only to be met with an outstretched hand, signaling me to stop. "There's nothing left to say," he said, his words slicing through the last thread of hope I was clinging to. "I'm going to be a father again. We've moved on. You should, too." The finality in his voice, the revelation of his new life, it was a gut punch, a cruel closure to the chapter of our lives that I had been desperately flipping back to. I turned away, the door closing behind me with a soft click that echoed like a gavel in my heart. The custody battle was a nightmare, a tortuous process that stripped me of my dignity and, eventually, my rights to raise my children. The court's decision was influenced by my recent actions, painting me as unstable and unfit. The day I watched my children leave with him, their hesitant glances back at me a mix of confusion and sadness, was the day I truly understood the magnitude of my loss. My downward spiral accelerated from there. Bills piled up, and the once comforting solitude of my home turned into a prison of my own making. I was a pariah, financially destitute and emotionally bankrupt. In a moment of sheer folly, driven by anger and a desire for retribution, I acted out in a way that caught the attention of the law. The charges were minor but symbolized the final collapse of the facade of respectability I had fought so hard to maintain. Sitting in the cold, sterile room, awaiting my turn to be processed, the reality of my situation finally settled in. I had lost everything. My family, my reputation, my dignity. The reflection staring back at me from the metal surface wasn't someone I recognized anymore. This wasn't the life I had envisioned, nor the person I wanted to be. It was in that moment of stark clarity, surrounded by the consequences of my actions, that the full weight of my downfall hit me. I had orchestrated my own demise, driven by selfish desires and irrational decisions. The road back, if there was one, would be long and fraught with challenges. But first, I had to confront the most difficult task of all: forgiving myself and learning to live with the choices I had made. The morning sun cast a soft glow over the sparse room I now called home, its light a stark contrast to the shadows that had taken residence in my life. With a steely resolve, I sat at the edge of my bed, today's to-do list etched firmly in my mind. Find a job. Any job, I muttered to myself, the words a mantra in my quest for redemption. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, they say, and mine was towards reclaiming the shards of my former life, however jagged they may be. As I ventured into the world, resume in hand, rejection became a familiar companion. Each no was a reminder of the reputation that preceded me, a ghost from my past that refused to be laid to rest. Yet, amidst the sea of dismissals, a lifeline appeared in the form of an old friend, someone who remembered the person I was before my life had spiraled out of control. "I've heard you've been looking for work," she said, her voice a balm to my bruised ego. "I might have something for you. It's not much, but it's a start." Gratitude welled up inside me, a tide of emotions I struggled to contain. "Thank you," I managed to say, the words barely a whisper. Here was my chance, a glimmer of hope in an otherwise darkened path. But the road to redemption is fraught with pitfalls, and mine was no exception. In a moment of weakness, a relapse into the very behaviors that had led to my downfall, I undermined the fragile progress I had made. A foolish mistake, a lapse in judgment, and suddenly, the whispers started again, the stares returned with renewed vigor. The final consequence of my actions was not immediate, but when it came, it was catastrophic. A chain reaction, a series of events triggered by my indiscretion, culminating in a loss so profound, it threatened to consume me. The details were a blur, a whirlwind of accusations, legal proceedings, and the stark reality of facing the world alone. It was in the aftermath, amidst the ruins of my once hopeful resurgence, that the realization of my true loss dawned on me. It wasn't just the material possessions, the status, or even the relationships that I mourned. It was the loss of myself, the person I could have been but chose not to be. Sitting amidst the debris of my shattered dreams, I understood, perhaps too late, the cost of my actions. The pain I had inflicted on those I loved, the trust I had squandered, the opportunities I had burned, these were the true casualties of my choices. The silence that followed was deafening, a testament to the void where my life used to be. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, I was left to ponder the remnants of what could have been. The path to rebuilding was obliterated, not just by the external forces that judged me but by my own hand. The realization that the deepest cuts were self-inflicted was a bitter pill to swallow, a truth that would define the contours of my existence henceforth. In that moment of clarity, I saw the full spectrum of my loss, not just as a tally of what was gone, but as a reflection of the person I had allowed myself to become. The journey forward was uncertain, a path shrouded in darkness, but it was mine to walk, one precarious step at a time. The day I truly encountered reality wasn't marked by dramatic revelations or a thunderous reckoning. It was the silence, the absence of the bustling life I once knew, that whispered the truth of the devastation I had caused. It hit me in waves, each one crashing harder than the last, as I stood in the empty rooms of what used to be our family home. The walls, once adorned with laughter and memories, now stood as silent witnesses to the collapse of the world we had built together. It was in the quiet aftermath of my family's departure that the full extent of the damage done to my children's lives became painfully clear. Their fleeting, troubled glances and forced smiles were etched into my mind, a constant reminder of the innocence I had carelessly shattered. "Mom, will we ever be a family again?" my youngest had asked, his eyes searching mine for a shred of hope I couldn't provide. How do you explain to your child that the sanctuary of family we had promised was now a battleground of my making? Left completely alone, the nights stretched into infinity, a void where reflection became my only companion. The journey from being a cherished partner and mother to this isolation was a path paved with my choices, each one a step away from the ones I loved and a step closer to my inevitable downfall. The gravity of my misdeeds weighed heavily on me, a burden I could neither share nor shed. The realization that I was solely responsible for the dismantling of my own life was a cold, unyielding truth I had to face. In the dramatic finale of my own making, I sat amidst the ruins of my past decisions, the stark reality of my situation suffocating any remnants of hope for redemption. The world outside moved on, indifferent to the despair that consumed me. The laughter of children playing in the distance was a cruel reminder of what I had lost, of what I had taken from my own children. As I reflected on my journey, the moments of joy and love that had once defined my life seemed like distant echoes, overshadowed by the chaos that followed. The realization that there was no path forward, no chance to undo the hurt and reclaim the life I had so recklessly thrown away, was a desolation beyond words. My actions had not only destroyed my present but had also stolen my future, leaving me trapped in a perpetual state of regret and longing for what could have been. In the end, the story of my life wasn't one of triumph over adversity or a tale of redemption. It was a cautionary whisper against the backdrop of life's complex tapestry, a stark reminder of the consequences of our choices. The silence of my empty home was a testament to the inevitable downfall that follows when we betray those we love, a downfall from which there was no return. As the sun set on what was once a life filled with promise, I was left to navigate the darkness alone, my heart heavy with the knowledge that the damage I had inflicted was irreparable. The shadows that crept in were not just the absence of light but the embodiment of the void within, a darkness that mirrored the desolation of a life undone by its own